Here at Haunted Historic Australia, we use AI to craft original, mood-rich visuals, ethically and without borrowed faces. That leaves us to focus on the storytelling, not chasing permissions. Our tales are obscure, horrifying, patriotic and heartfelt. We welcome thoughtful voices with constructive feedback. The rest, deleted like ghosts that don't belong. Yes, these are frightening times. AI is unknown, and with a dystopian future a real possibility. If we turned away from everything that scared us, we may as well not live. AI is simply a tool, much like a camera or paintbrush, to create imagination, defiance and care, to reclaim forgotten histories and amplify atmospheres that otherwise stay silent. Fear of new tools has always existed, but it's the artists who push through and redefine what storytelling can be. Thank you. After Milperra, the Bikies didn't disappear. They just got smarter. Less bar fights, more black markets. This is how Australia's outlaw motorcycle gangs went from leather jackets to criminal empires. Welcome to the OMG, Outlaw Motorcycle Gangs of Australia, and Episode 3, Crime and Consequence. Last episode we took you back, September 2nd, 1984, and the Milperra Massacre on Father's Day at the Viking Tavern. A family-friendly motorcycle swap meet became a battleground for two rival outlaw motorcycle gangs. 6 of the Bikies lost their lives and a young girl gunned down in the crossfire. The nation is stunned. Before Milperra, many Australians viewed bikie gangs as rebellious but mostly harmless. The massacre left a lasting scar on Australian society. It transformed public perception of outlaw motorcycle clubs from rebellious subcultures to dangerous criminal organisations. This shift in perception gave political cover for tougher laws and policing. Even decades later, it remains a defining moment in the country's criminal history. The aftermath of the Milperra Massacre was swift, chaotic and deeply consequential. Authorities launched Operation Hard Walk immediately following the massacre. It involved detectives from New South Wales Homicide Squad, forensic experts and numerous regional officers, being one of the largest criminal investigations in Australian history at that time. From the moment police gained control of the Viking Tavern car park, it was cordoned off and treated as a major crime scene. Dozens of firearms, spent cartridges and other weapons were recovered. Forensic teams worked around the clock to reconstruct the sequence of events. Police interviewed hundreds of witnesses, including bystanders at the swap meet. The operation focused on gathering forensic evidence, conducting interviews, coordinating arrests and managing the mountain of legal and procedural complexities that arose. Within days, a total of 43 bikies from the Bandidos and Comancheros were rounded up for their roles in the massacre. The trial of the century. The courtroom saga that followed the Milperra Massacre was as intense and sprawling as the shootout itself, an unprecedented legal drama in Australian history. Held in the Parramatta Local Court, the committal hearing began in 1985. This preliminary hearing was one of the longest and most complex in Australian legal history at the time. It involved extensive witness testimony, forensic evidence and legal arguments to determine whether there was sufficient evidence to proceed to a full trial in the Supreme Court. It concluded in the December, when Magistrate Greg Glass formally committed 41 bikies, 26 Bandidos and 15 Comancheros to stand trial for the 7 murders that occurred on the Father's Day, the year before. The hearing laid the groundwork for the eventual Supreme Court trial, which wouldn't begin until June of 1987. The delay in bringing the Milperra Massacre case to trial stemmed from the sheer scale and complexity of the investigation and legal proceedings. The shootout occurred in a public space during a motorcycle swap meet, so there were many civilian witnesses and a chaotic crime scene to reconstruct. Police had to sift through hundreds of witness statements, forensic reports and photographic evidence. Evidence included ballistic reports, autopsy findings and internal club communications. Security and spectacle. Due to the violent nature of the crime, the notoriety of the accused and the risk of retaliation or intimidation, the court had to implement extraordinary security measures, which added to the logistical delays. Armed guards, metal detectors and strict protocols were in place. The Bikies, many still loyal to their clubs, often appeared in court in matching attire, adding to the theatricality of the proceedings. The courtroom was often packed with media, family members and law enforcement, creating a tense and emotionally charged atmosphere. At the time too, the New South Wales court system was already under strain. A case of this magnitude required significant time to schedule and prepare, especially with so many co-defendants and legal teams involved. The prosecution relied on the common purpose doctrine, which meant proving that all participants shared responsibility for the violence, even if they didn't fire a weapon. This required careful legal framing and preparation, coordinating legal representation, evidence and logistics for the many defendants was a monumental task. The legal proceedings were intense and lengthy. Testimonies and tensions. The trial featured harrowing eyewitness accounts, forensic evidence and internal club communications. Some bikies turned on each other, while others maintained a strict code of silence. The prosecution argued that both clubs came prepared for war, while the defence tried to paint the evidence as chaotic and unplanned. Verdicts and fallout. After months of testimony and legal wrangling, the presiding judge, Justin Adrian Roden, described the violence as a senseless and savage confrontation. William Jock Ross was identified by the judge as the instigator of the violence and received a life sentence. On June 12, 1987, the jury delivered 63 murder convictions for 9 bikies convicted of the 7 murders, 8 Comancheros, including Jock Ross, and 1 bandito, Tony Lard Melville, and 147 manslaughter convictions for 21 men convicted on 7 counts of manslaughter, all under the doctrine of common purpose, although after appeals, all were reduced to manslaughter. Jock Ross was sentenced, but was released early. But Snotty Spencer never sees trial. He takes his own life in prison in April of 1985. At the time of his death, Snotty was facing multiple murder charges under the doctrine of common purpose. The looming trial, combined with the intense media scrutiny and isolation in custody, likely intensified his mental distress. The massacre and the weight of responsibility he felt for it reportedly pushed him into a spiral of guilt and depression. Snotty's death was a devastating moment for the Bandidos and a sobering reminder of the human cost behind the violence. Club fragmentation and alliances. The massacre fractured relationships within and between clubs. Some members left the scene entirely, while others doubled down, leading to new alliances and rivalries. The Milperra Massacre sent shockwaves through Australia's outlaw motorcycle scene, and its impact was both immediate and long-lasting. The courtroom drama was later dramatised in the TV miniseries Bikie Wars, Brothers in Arms, which captured the emotional weight and moral ambiguity of the trial. The series helped cement the massacre and its legal aftermath as a defining moment in Australian criminal history. law enforcement wake-up call. The event marked a turning point in how authorities approached bikie gangs in Australia. Law enforcement agencies dramatically escalated their surveillance, prompting the formation of specialised police task forces focused on outlaw motorcycle gangs. Legislative reforms. The bloodshed led to stricter gun control laws in New South Wales, including tighter licensing and registration requirements. Public outcry over the use of military-style weapons in a suburban setting pushed lawmakers to tighten firearm regulations. It also laid the groundwork for future anti-gang legislation, such as anti-consorting laws and the controversial bikie laws that restricted club gatherings and insignia. The trial and its surrounding investigation, Operation Hard Walk, marked a turning point in how police approached outlaw motorcycle gangs. It laid the groundwork for future task forces like Strike Force Raptor, which adopted more aggressive, intelligence-led strategies. Going underground. The gangs adapted. No more public shootouts. No more headlines. Instead, covert operations, encrypted phones, front businesses. The Brotherhood went underground and the empire began to grow. Clubs began avoiding public displays of force, like large group rides or open gatherings in full colours. Members became more cautious about flaunting affiliations, especially in areas with heavy police presence. Clubhouse fortification and secrecy. Many clubhouses were relocated to more remote or industrial areas. Often fortified with surveillance, reinforced doors and escape routes, access became tightly controlled with layers of vetting for new members and visitors. Communication shifts. Clubs moved away from open radio chatter or traceable phone calls. They adopted coded language, burner phones, and eventually encrypted messaging apps as technology evolved. Legitimate fronts. To shield their activities, some clubs invested in legitimate businesses, mechanic shops, tattoo parlours, security firms, that doubled as meeting points or income streams. This blurred the line between legal and illegal operations, making law enforcement's job harder. Organisational restructuring. Leadership structures became more compartmentalised, with fewer members aware of the full scope of operations. This reduced the risk of infiltration or mass arrests, like those seen after Milperra. Counter-surveillance. Clubs began actively monitoring police movements, using lookouts, scanners, and even drones in later years. Some adopted military-style discipline and training, a legacy of Jock Ross's influence. This shift underground wasn't just about survival. It was about adapting to a new era of scrutiny where visibility meant vulnerability. The business of crime. By the 1990s and 2000s, outlaw motorcycle gangs weren't just riding. They were running meth labs in rural sheds, smuggling cocaine through ports, laundering money through tattoo parlours, gyms and trucking companies. They offered protection to businesses, or else. These weren't just gangs anymore. They were criminal enterprises, with structure, with strategy, with spreadsheets. New recruits. Some were IT specialists, accountants, logistic experts. The modern outlaw motorcycle gang was less about rebellion and more about return on investment. It wasn't about the ride, it was about the revenue. From crime to consequence, leather to laundering, from brotherhood to business. Australia's bikie gangs evolved into something far more dangerous, and they're still evolving. Next time, power struggles, encrypted warfare, and the rise of the Nike bikie. Hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for episode 4.